Penny Saturday is starting Friday, and now you can get great deals for your home, too. Hurry into JCPenney this Friday and Saturday to find select Home Expressions 100% cotton solid bath towels for only $3. Plus, get an extra 20% off with your JCPenney credit card and coupon on select apparel, home, shoes, fine jewelry, and accessories in-store and at jcp.com. Or save an extra 15% off with any other form of payment. Now that's getting your pennies worth. JCPenney. Prices valid 8/26 to 8/27. Coupon required. Valid 8/24 to 8/28. Some exclusions apply. 20% offer subject to credit approval. Check jcp.com or newspaper for coupon and details.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another conversation. Today we have Myrna Loy, who was born in England but of Jamaican parents. She is the publisher and managing editor of Black Bright News, which is the first of its kind publishing Luton that serves people of color. Loy is also a qualified counselor, teacher of adult literacy, and qualified to teach those whose first language is not English. Myrna moved to Luton in October 1999 after living in the United States for 11 years and Laguna, Angola for 1 year. My co-host, Chris Daly, will do the interview, so take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Denise. And Myrna, welcome to our conversation this afternoon.
You're more than welcome.
Great. First, I want to get to know you a little. Tell us a little about your circumstances. It seemed like you've had a very varied global life. Tell us a little about how what shaped the circumstances that shaped Myrna's life. Tell us a little about your upbringing.
Okay, I was born in the 1950s at a time when children should be seen and not heard. And being creative and full of words with no one to bounce off of, I found that writing was what I was thinking. And I used to write about everything that used to affect me, and it was the best way to do that, and it helped me navigate through my adolescent and teenage years.
Wow, that's incredible. You're different, varied. So when did you start writing as a child? Were there any person who inspired you to take up this as a career path?
No, God was my teacher, I guess, and my source of inspiration, because I couldn't trust anyone with my secrets, and I felt safe sharing what I was feeling in that situation. I didn't trust adults for various reasons, and no matter how famous I became or others became, I trusted myself and God alone. So that is He was my source of inspiration. And out of that, when I was communicating, I was writing, probably for myself, but I felt it was kind of a safe haven with which to write. So career came second. Really, it was a therapeutic journey that I was on when I started writing. I didn't actually think, oh, Myrna, I want to be a writer. It just happened.
That's incredible. You've also lived in a lot of places around this globe. You've lived in the U.S., in Africa, and now in the U.K. How have these different life experiences shaped your writing?
Well, the different places I've lived have shaped my writing in that when I lived in Angola, the focus was taken off myself and onto the people and the surroundings. Angola made me selfless. The poverty of the children and the lifestyle of the adults made me feel as though I had more than enough. Therefore, my circumstances became second place. In America, it was a bit different because it affected me in a similar way, because poverty and extravagance were the two extremes, but they still went both hand in hand, and I was lost somewhere in the middle. So I found myself writing both sides of the experience. And as for the UK, it was where I was born, and therefore is a place that betrays my experience and has a way of controlling my thoughts of myself if I allow it to. I try not to allow it to, because the UK is a kind of a country where people are forced to conform. And so if you are creative, you don't want to be in that kind of bubble.
Incredible, yes. So you said living in diaspora from, your parents were Jamaicans. And as you clearly shared, it affected the outlook, and you have to put up there's a lot of strength and courage to be able to be yourself. How did you stay connected to your culture given these circumstances?
I think if you're true to your identity and you're true to yourself, you stay true to who you are and your culture. And I remember when I was in the United States, because of my British culture, I yearned to hear the British voice. Everybody around me was mostly American, of course, and because I worked at the United Nations, there was a lot of different other cultures. So the English were a minority, and I remember being in the canteen, and I heard two English people speaking, and it was like the most sweetest sound. And so I guess when I'm looking to connect with my culture, I look for things that are similar, and I look for things that make me feel comfortable and make me feel safe. And I think that is what the culture does for me. England is a very, very strange place. I mean, some people call it full of hypocrisy. Some people call it, diplomatic. But there's one thing that's consistent in that, no matter where you go and you hear an English voice, all of a sudden there's this brotherhood or sisterhood, regardless of the color.
Wow. Now that you're in London versus, say, living in Windrush, and you've talked about how the different cultures impacted you, what's your observation, given your journalistic skills, how the Jamaican community has been impacted economically and politically in, say, diaspora, in the places you've lived? Well,
it's a bit difficult because I would think that when I'm thinking about how the Jamaicans are impacted now in modern day, they've been kind of superseded by people from the EEC and, Syria and the Pakistanis. And so the Jamaican culture and the West Indian culture has kind of been subsumed by everything else that's going on. We're allowed actually to just sail on, as it would say, whereas being the focus of attention where it used to be. And we're just allowed to live in a kind of I won't say a safe environment, but a safer environment than how it was when we were the main focus, and racism and everything, we were at the forefront of that as well.
Given the change in economic opportunities, given those who went to immigrate long ago, how do you sense are we doing economically, given even the freedoms that we have now versus those who may have been of Muslim ancestry?
The thing is, it'll always be, if you work hard enough, you'll get what you want. Our parents left that legacy. Our parents have homes, the majority, the mortgages are paid off in the UK. The USA it's totally different, but in the UK, most of our parents, the mortgages are paid off, and all they have to worry about is the day-to-day bills. The younger people, it's a bit more different because they've kind of been lulled into a false sense of security. They don't have the same ambitions as our parents. And I find that the young people, you're forever trying to explain and warn them about the trepidation of the things that can happen if they don't stick to a goal, don't have a job, don't have a career, or don't have a dream. And what happens is the young people, as young people are, they think they know it all. They probably have to find out the hard way. And that's how it is over here. Economically, you can do what you can do. I mean, if you look at Levi Roots, yes, he took it a step further and went to the Lion's Den. Now I noticed last week he'd opened up a restaurant in London. So
okay.
and he's got his line of all his sauces and stuff, and we've got a lot of Jamaicans here who are doing stuff, but they're mostly over 40 or maybe over 50 maybe. So that's what I'm saying. It's the mindset that they brought over from Jamaica that is integral to how they fare later on in life.
Right. The present generation, you see them at risk, given the kind of mindset they're taking to the workplace and to the marketplace.
Yeah, I see them at risk. They tend to be quite opinionated. I find that they feel as though a lot of them feel as though they have a right to have what they have, and so then they don't carry that same level of appreciation and gratitude. And I have 3 daughters, and the daughters, all 3 of them are doing pretty well. 2 of them that I grew up with, they're quite there's like 2 ends of the spectrum. You've got one who's working like 24 hours a day, and money is her sole motivation. A lot of the times, she's trying to have a life-work balance now. But she's going through this self-development phase where she's looking at her behavior, she's looking at her actions, and she's realizing that it doesn't fare to be opinionated, and it is good to be flexible, which is what is needed. I think a lot of young people, they need to be self-reflective. You know what I mean? They need to analyze their behavior and what they're doing in order to get out of this self-fulfilling prophecy that they're going to end up without anything. My other daughter, she's a mother. She's much more laid back, much more quiet. She does DJing just like me. But you'll still find that the younger people still have a sense of, like I said, have a sense of, I deserve this, entitlement, and it goes down the line to the younger people, and I'm not quite sure how that comes about. But the younger you get, the more entitled children feel, and I mean, you can see these adverts on the news and on the television, and now they're saying, oh, it's only $299 per PSI, and the young person will think, oh yes, mummy, I want that, and they haven't got no concept of £299 being something that's achievable for the parents. So it is very difficult for the young people. I do fear for them sometimes. I'm glad my children have grown up with a strong mentality. They're very intelligent. They know how to do what they need to do to get on. But there's a lot of younger people, and it's the people that are below, I think, maybe below 21 that I fear for.
Well, I hope they heed your counsel and wisdom. Wanted to, if you could cast your eyes now back to Jamaica. As you know, this past September, after the UN meetings, the British Prime Minister went down to Jamaica and he offered them this, what's been called the infamous gift of a prison. And it came from the UK, where the UK would pay 40% and Jamaica would pay 60%, and then the UK prisoners would be deported there. What's your insight, and what have you heard from your perspective in the UK on this issue, and what's your wisdom on it?
Well, it's gone kind of silent now, but UK prisons are not a deterrent for convicted criminals. They house TVs and libraries and a gym, and criminals are allowed to learn a trade in prison. It's a rehabilitation centre, really. And I can understand if Cameron visited the Jamaican prisons, he might view them as being barbaric. And what he might think it's because Jamaica can't afford to improve the prisons, as opposed to understanding that they're deliberately designed to serve as a deterrent. I can understand why Jamaicans would be up in arms at the offer of a prison, but it would be because they don't understand where Cameron is coming from. It is important to recognise that you need what you need from the British system and plan systematically what Jamaica needs in order to achieve it using similar tactics. And I come from a place of, i.e. you come from a place of deference. In other words, it could be seen as licking their butt kind of thing, but knowing what your end objective is. So instead of creating an uproar about the prisons and brandishing concessions for slavery, it's like skinning up with them and taking the money and doing a portion of it could be towards the prisons, and you can use the rest of it, for maybe training programs for prisons. It doesn't all have to be invested in prisons just because they've said so. It can be related, and that's one thing with the British, when the British give money, as long as it's related and they can say that they've been seen to be doing some good, in quotes. I was given
it seemed like the security, I'm sorry, the security minister of Jamaica, it seemed like even after the dust-up was still supportive of it because he knows he needed a system that needed upgraded facilities that hadn't been upgraded since the 19th century, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is the point. He'd probably be looking at not as, oh, you know, they need schools and education. He'd be looking at it as, bloody hell, look at those prisons. They're disgusting. They need new prisons. You see what I mean? Right. So,
exactly.
And I think that the prison, if they were, I don't want to say if they were clever, but you need to be slick and smart, and in order to get the money and do what you need to do with it. I got a grant. Right. I got a grant of £10,000 just over a year ago, and it was to raise awareness for human trafficking. And I thought to myself, how am I? I didn't know anything about human trafficking at the time, but by the end of it, I did. But I didn't realize that it doesn't have to just be about human trafficking. It can be about workshops. It can be about conferences. It can, I could do a couple of issues of my magazines, as long as it was related to the human trafficking idea and it had a way of raising its awareness. And similarly, with the money for the prison, I think that if they'd taken it and used it, if they could take it and use it for something that could benefit them in whichever way they need it, they might just, give a facelift to the prisons, but, to do something, but still benefit. I'm not quite sure how. That's my take on it, anyway.
That's a good take. It was a very emotional reaction to it, and not seeing it as didn't see the opportunity element of this proposition.
Exactly, and I think that's the Jamaican pride, and pride comes before a fall. And I think, Jamaica has lost out a lot because of pride, and a lot of times it's what kind of holds them back. And sometimes they do say pride comes before a fall, but sometimes you just have to bow a little bit. You know what? And look at the strategic objective. Look at what you want over and above. Nobody doesn't really business about your pride. You know what I mean? So they're making up a lot of noise about they don't want this 20 million or how much it was. It's going to make them look silly, because how did they refuse 20 million when the country could do with 20 million?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
they could have actually negotiated the deal. That could be the starting point of a deal that they could have negotiated to get a win-win situation. Yeah.
Exactly. And if they'd looked at it and discussed it and then said, okay, this is what we're going to do with this, and then we can look at doing that, then you've got a kind of a working arrangement. But having said that, Cameron probably knew how they were going to react. So it could have been an empty promise. It could have been an empty promise, because Jamaicans are so predictable. So it could have been an empty promise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's talk a little now about your writing. You're a prolific writer. You have a magazine, but you also write beyond the magazine. Tell us a little about how you decide on a writing topic.
Well, my writing, my recent book, which was The Spirit of Queens, that actually just came. I don't have a plan. It's similar to my paintings. I have a yearning to release something. That's how it starts. I have a yearning to release something, and like with a painting, that's why if I use oils, it's not very conducive to creativity, because it takes a lot of preparation. So similarly with writing, it's so much easier, because if I have a feeling, I can just quickly get a piece of paper or sit in front of my laptop or my PC and get going. And with The Spirit of Queens, I remember the words just coming to me. They were like channeling through me. And it was one poem after the other, and every one of them was rhyming, and I thought, what the hell is going on here? Because it wasn't natural, because, I was writing something about being Nefertiti's sister and fighting with Akhenaten. And I said, that is not a normal train of thought. I don't think like that in my daily or normal realm. So I thought it was something to do with past life transgression, but when I researched that, it wasn't that. And the nearest I could get to it was being a portal for spirits to enter and tell me that story. So when I was doing that, that's how it came, one after the other, and I just decided, okay, Myrna, I let it exhaust me until there was no more, because sometimes what will happen with my writing is that it starts becoming contrived. I start trying to force it, and at that point I need to stop, because that is coming from a different place. And that's what happens.
Right. So when you're in when you're in the zone, and you're trying to maximize your writing during that time, and when you've seen that zone session ebbing, when it is to stop.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's how the spirit of Queens came about. And most of my poetry comes about the same way.
That's wonderful. You also wrote this Holiday in Mobay. What was your goal, and what inspired you, and what was dwelling up within you that made this piece of writing happen?
Well, the motivation behind writing The Other Side of Tourism was realizing that I wasn't as in tune with the Jamaican culture as I thought I was. I found that I was impatient, I found I was snobbish, I found I was irritable, and I found out I was intolerant. And I didn't realize that as I was writing it. All I was doing was picking holes in the experience. If somebody took a long time to bring my bag, I was complaining. If somebody skin up with me, I was complaining. If somebody, I was finding fault with everything, in the sense that it was, I think I'm a type of person, I like things done, and like things done quickly, and I like punctuality and all of those things. And I found myself in a situation where that wasn't happening. I couldn't get a phone line. The guy couldn't get the air conditioner to work. And yes, I did make it kind of amusing. And when I started that book, I didn't think, I'm writing a book complaining about Jamaica. It didn't start off about that. What I started off doing was writing to my daughter every day about each experience, because I went there by myself. And every day I would send her a letter, and she would say, Myrna, she said, this is really, really funny. This is really good. You should write a book about it. So by the time I came back, I had streams and streams of emails and letters that I had written to her about the experience, which helped me to remember the experience. And then I kind of refined it and, made it less negative. And it was factual. But then I had to do another part of it, a part 2, which made me a bit more objective. So I looked back on it and, kind of realized that, okay, Myrna, it was the way you were. It's not Jamaica itself, because if you know Jamaica, you know what to expect. So I had these expectations, and, I just realized a lot about myself when I wrote that.
That's cool. I like your transparency, and it now you're out of the circumstances versus in it when you wrote it, then you could use your time of reflection and do the modifications as needed.
Exactly.
To reflect on yourself.
Exactly, and I've just come back from Jamaica, I think it's about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and my experience was just so different, because I've grown, and I could just appreciate everything. I was aware of what was going on, but I wasn't judgmental. I wasn't critical. You see what I mean? And at some point, that would then become a story, because there was quite a few experiences in that time I was there. But it would be much more objective. It wouldn't be. And the funny thing is that a lot of people who read it kind of said to me, Myrna, I wish I'd been there to help you have a better experience. And I never kind of looked at it that way. I didn't think there was anything wrong with what I was writing. But but the majority of people, like Diane Abbott, she's the what do you call it, the PC over here, and I had Lord Ousley. I had a few Jamaicans read it, and a lot of people really, really found it humorous. But it's a kind of it's a British humour, not a Jamaican humour. I think Jamaicans who would read it would probably think, oh, she didn't meet the right people. She didn't stay in the right place. They would think that way, as opposed to, how I was viewing it.
Exactly. Well, it's I guess to embrace, outsiders' perspective on yourself. The human rationality usually kicks in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you're a painter, you're a writer. How do people get to appreciate and to follow what you're doing in these spaces?
Well, to be honest, Facebook is my biggest outlet. I mean, whatever I'm doing, that's where it goes. That's not just the radio station which I do on Saturdays. I do promote that on Facebook. But I also, if I'm having a funny day or, I see Facebook, a lot of people look negatively on Facebook. But I see Facebook as a way to motivate people, inspire people. You have so many positives about it. And if I can wake up every morning and send somebody something positive or something inspirational, I feel that's a job well done. So sometimes I'm on Facebook for quite a while and I say, Myrna, you really need to discipline yourself and get off of Facebook. And then on the other hand, I'll say, well, Myrna, you're not really being idle. You are actually making a conscious effort to connect with people, to make people feel better about their situation, to motivate people. And I think it's a kind of a consistent trend throughout my art, my painting, and my poetry, that it is there to inspire. And that I would like to think that I'm able to do that, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through Twitter, whatever it is. And LinkedIn, I'm on all of them, but I have different, because I wear so many different hats.
Right.
I have different, I have Black Bright News on Twitter and then Black Bright News on LinkedIn because they're more professional. And then with, I'm Lady Loy with Facebook.
Lady Live at Facebook if they'd like to follow you. Lady Live, L-I-V-E?
No, Lady Loy, L-O-Y, my last name.
L-O-Y.
L-O-Y.
Got you, all right.
Yes.
Lady Loy, wonderful.
Lady Loy, yeah.
Great. So as we close, do you have any parting words for us? Give me some of your wisdom.
Well, there's no secret to being the best you can be apart from not to compromise your values, which are very difficult when you respect your parents and you respect adults as many of the elder folk have been brought up. And I found that was my biggest challenge and my biggest inhibitor, being not necessarily disrespecting, because with my mother I would never speak back to her, but I'm a type of person, I know what I want to do, and then I have a mother who feels that this is the right way to do things. And you don't talk your business, you don't write a book, you don't do your poetry, if it's going to say something about you. And I found those kind of things. I found it felt as though I was betraying her, even though it wasn't about her. But I found it very difficult. But I think it is important to not compromise your values. I mean, take into consideration other people and other people's feelings, of course, and always respect your parents and your elders. I believe that. And it's important to follow the dictates of your heart and your soul and your instincts. Everything else will fall into place.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing so many insights.
So to learn more about Chris Daly, visit Digital to Grow Media, and it's the number 2, Digital to Grow Media. Learn more about Myrna Loy and all the fabulous things she's told you, her social media. But you can also visit Black Bright News to learn more about Jamaican diaspora. Visit JamaicanDiaspora.com. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Myrna.
Look out in the street there. You know what you don't see? My car, because I had to sell it to pay the lawyer I hired when I got busted for drunk driving. You know what else you don't see? My girlfriend, who decided that a guy with no car and no license and no money was no fun. And hey, you know what else you don't see? You don't see me leaving for work in the morning, because I missed so much time with court and everything that I got fired.
Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
I figured out who the neighbor around the corner is.
Oh, yeah?
I like him a lot.
Ooh.
He lets me talk as much as I want, is very simple, and has great plans.
Okay, I have to meet him.
Sure. Say hi. This is Metro PCS.
Metro PCS is in your neighborhood. Come say hi and get unlimited data, talk, and text for only $30 period. All on the fast nationwide 4G LTE T-Mobile network. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. 1 gigabyte of high-speed data included. See store for details, terms, and conditions, and data management info.